Hey YouTube, Jim here. Welcome to Top 10 Archive. Weird people have it better than ever these days. People that 100 years ago would have been outcast and marginalized. So to celebrate, let's remember the 10 weirdest people in history. From strange men with a lot of money, of which we have a lot these days, to rich women who would purchase children, and of course, the woman who had a relationship with a dolphin. Stick around and be amazed by just how strange humans can really get. But before we get started, why not become an archivist today by clicking that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. If you end up enjoying this video, let us know by giving it a thumbs up. And in the comments section, tell us who you think is the weirdest person throughout history. Number 10. John Mitton. Mad Jack, or Mango, King of the Pickles, was a mischievous fellow who lived in the UK until his death in 1834. When you have this many nicknames, as strange as he had them, people can definitely tell you're the black sheep. He's the kind of guy you never invited to your parties, but that always showed up anyway. Well, in reality, he'd be the one inviting you to dinner. He'd hide among the guests' route to his house dressed as a highwayman and would jump out of a bush firing pistols over their heads. The prank would result in his guests turning their carriage around in fear and not taking too kindly to the joke. Another time, he notably rode a bear into the dining room. The bear was easygoing enough to go along with the ruse until Mad Jack dug a spur into his side when he swiftly bit him on the leg. That's just two of the many ridiculous things he did in his short life. He died at 38, over his head in debt, but well known by everyone. In fact, 14,000 people showed up to his funeral procession. Number 9. Henry Cyril Padgett. Another eccentric character in history, Henry Cyril Padgett lived from 1875 to 1905. He was insanely rich, for a while. He inherited almost £1 billion, but he spent it all before he turned 30. In fact, he never turned 30 at all. He was a flamboyant young person long before we saw the likes of him on TV, on pop albums, or in magazines. He pretty much only wore silks and gems, walked with a dolled-up poodle, and married his cousin for a while. He enjoyed dressing up his wife, cousin Lily, like a doll. They eventually got their marriage annulled because it was never consummated. During his short life, he was the black sheep of the family as he managed to squander his entire inheritance on his lavish lifestyle by buying diamonds like a common man buys cigarettes. After inheriting the title of his family estate, which included 30,000 acres of land that provided an annual income of $12 million a year in today's money, he managed to go $60 million in debt, went bankrupt, and then died 6 months later after a long battle with an illness. Number 8. Annamaria Hellena. Anna married into the French aristocracy, though she was British by birth. She lived from 1826 to 1908 and was a well-known woman with some very interesting beliefs. For example, she believed that vaccination should never be given, that breathing cow farts were the secret to longevity. She hung onions on her doorknob to keep her protected from infections. She wore silk stockings stuffed with squirrel fur around her forehead to prevent wrinkles, and ate large amounts of fresh herring roe to prevent bronchitis. She left behind an inheritance for an orphanage with instructions to not vaccinate any of the girls and that no girl be taught mathematics except for multiplication tables. Number 7. Nikola Tesla. To be someone whose name inspires one of the world's most luxurious and techie cars, you need to be someone who has changed the world as we know it. That's Nikola Tesla. But he was also an obsessive-compulsive man who would not touch anything that fell into a particular category. Tesla had a fear of touching anything round, was obsessed with the number 3. He'd only stay in hotel rooms divisible by 3. He'd walk 3 times around the block before entering a place, and always ate his meals with 3 sets of 6 napkins. He refused to speak to women who wore pearls, having once sent his secretary home for the day for the offense, and would also determine the cubic mass of the food on his plate then calculate how many jaw movements it would require to digest it. Number 6. Tycho Brahe. Tycho Brahe was an astronomer from Denmark. So far, so good. He had this quirk, though, that he liked keeping a dwarf under the dinner table. That little person's name was Jep. Tycho believed Jep had psychic powers, so during mealtime he paid him to sit there under the dinner table. There are so many questions that come up for me here. For one, where did he find this person? Why did he think he had psychic powers? And why, oh why, does that mean he should sit under his dinner table? Tycho also had a prized pet elk that unfortunately met his demise while getting too drunk one night and fell down a flight of stairs. Yes, that last sentence is both true and about an elk. Number 5. Tarrare. Tarrare was a peasant boy that lived in France around 1770. He was a typically poor child. He went hungry often and wore dirty clothes, but frankly would still cry for food even when he'd eaten. By the time he was 17, little Tarrare would eat livestock feed that he stole from village barns. He was quite a sight, with a large mouth, a sweaty appearance, and an unfortunate smell. Of course, he's not quite what his parents wanted in a child, and he was kicked out. So what does an extraordinarily hungry guy do? Make a profession out of it. He'd eat live animals, stones, and during the French Revolution, under hard circumstances, he was accused of eating a toddler. After his death, it was discovered that he had a mutation where his stomach started at the back of his throat and continued all the way down into his torso. His other organs were displaced. Number 4. Karl Tanzler. Karl Tanzler was an Austrian physician who would have otherwise lived a normal life if he hadn't started treating TB patient Maria Helena Milagro de Hoyos in 1931. Then, that young Cuban-American woman made him turn into a grave-robbing, corpse-loving, strange human being. He convinced himself that this woman was the love of his life. Tuberculosis being what it was in the 30s, she died never having reciprocated his feelings. However, he offered to buy her a mausoleum, in the process pocketing a key for himself and visiting her grave often. Then he stopped visiting, and when people started wondering why he kept purchasing women's clothing and products, they made the shocking discovery that he'd been housing her body and attempting to keep it in one piece. He was arrested but never did time because the statute of limitations had passed. Number 3. Gloria Ramirez. This woman was considered at the time to be entirely toxic. Not like people say toxic now, like she's super negative and brings everybody down, but because she possibly caused the death of a bunch of people. She was taken to a hospital in California in 1994 with a fast heart rate, low blood pressure, and incoherent. She was 31 years old and suffering from the late stages of cervical cancer. Doctors found an oily substance on her skin and mouth with a fruity garlic smell. In her blood, they found particles, ammonia to be exact. Then, nurses in the room started fainting. Others started having trouble breathing or feeling paralyzed. Why? No one has any clue. Ramirez died in the end and 3 autopsies were done on her body, but no one has any solid answers as to why she became so toxic. Number 2. Margaret Howe Lovatt. Margaret was a part of a NASA-funded experiment which, upon first glance, would give her a lot of credibility, right? Except she was having a relationship with a dolphin. In the 1960s, neuroscientists and astronomers teamed up to find out how to communicate with dolphins, building a lab with a workspace and a dolphin enclosure. Margaret Howe Lovatt stopped by to check it out, and the lab's director saw her curiosity and agreed to let her help teach the dolphins. She tried to teach them to make sounds like humans do. She worked nonstop, even living in the lab. She bonded especially with one dolphin, Peter. Peter quite liked her too. He showed sexual interest in her, and she'd have to return him to female dolphins often to relieve him, until she started relieving him manually herself to save time. This, of course, didn't look great for the experiment, so it lost funding and the two were separated. We'd like to say there was a happy ending to this story, no pun intended, but out of depression from the separation, the dolphin committed suicide by swimming to the bottom of the tank and refused to come up for air. Number 1. Sadhu Amar Bharati. Did Sadhu attend the world's best rock concert, or is he still waiting for his third-grade teacher to give him permission to speak? Neither, surprisingly. Inspirational to some, somewhat weird to the rest of us, Sadhu Bharati gained notoriety by keeping his right arm raised for more than 40 years, and counting. Since 1973, Sadhu has not lowered his arm in order to show his devotion to the Hindu deity Shiva. He claims, as we can only imagine, that he dealt with immense pain for quite some time until it finally subsided and he lost all feeling and use of his arm. As it is long atrophied, Sadhu couldn't regain use or even put it back down if he wanted to. Thanks for watching. I see you raising your hand like you want to say something about Sadhu or one of the others on this list. Permission granted to do so in the comments. Afterward, you have permission to subscribe, click the notifications bell, and certainly to give this video a like. All in favor, raise your right hand. Keep it up, 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 up.